please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
We return to our top story this morning, a presumed terror attack in Lower Manhattan. NBC's Jay Gray joins us from the Big Apple for the very latest. And Jay, we've had a couple times with each other. We do know 8 dead, 12 injured, some critically. Any change at all?
Yeah. Not in the numbers, thankfully, because there is concern some of those who are critically injured are in dire straits right now, and they continue to be cared for at area hospitals here, and surgeries continue as well. According to police, we do have a name on the suspect here. He's 29-year-old Saifullah Saipov. We are told that he is someone who had lived in Florida for a time, had been a truck driver, was not, according to officials, on any type of terror watch list. In fact, his only interaction with law enforcement had been citations as a truck driver. Apparently lived in New Jersey, about 30 minutes from the scene here. So you have investigations going on right now in the Tampa, Florida area, as well as New Jersey. Of course, the primary focus continues to be here at the scene, and it's going to be for quite some time. This is going to be an extensive investigation. It includes the FBI Terrorism Task Force, which is here, and just an army of New York police, and they continue to pour in at this time investigating, Bernie.
Right. Jay, what is the situation now? Obviously, because there are so many questions left on still to be answered, much of Manhattan remains in lockdown and will be for the foreseeable future.
Well, they're getting homes. That's a good sign. All right, no talk.
Absolutely, much more than a mile that is locked down at this point, just in the shadows of the World Trade Center, and it's an area that's a neighborhood. In fact, if I look past the camera here and over, you can see people out with their kids trick-or-treating. There are several schools in this area, a preschool, an elementary school, a high school as well. There's a community college just off to my left here, so it's a very active area. It's an area where a lot of people go through their daily lives here, interrupted by this man who took this rented pickup truck onto a bike path, running into and over, according to witnesses, several people who were out enjoying what was a beautiful day here in Lower Manhattan. We know, according to police, that he stepped out of that vehicle with a BB gun in one hand, a paintball gun in the other, and was yelling Allah Akbar at the time. One of the foot patrol officers who was here and flagged down by someone who saw this unfolding, really being credited with saving a lot of lives here for moving in so quickly.
Yeah. All right, Jay, we'll check in with you in the next hour. New Yorkers will overcome. They always overcome, and they'll do it this time as well. China getting ready to roll out the red carpet for Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. Let's bring in Sri for more on this. Sri, part of this Go East or Look East policy we talk about. Morning.
Yes, it is. And this is going to be the 22nd regular meeting between these two countries. So it's largely a formality, and the cynic in me believes that this is largely going to be for the cameras and symbolic. But it's important to note two things that I think are going to be high on the agenda. And I did say this before. It's really the politics of the region. It's really about China and Russia working in tandem to contain North Korea. And it's not just about the DPRK. I think that Moscow and Beijing are going to be putting a full court press on the United States and also on South Korea, but particularly on the US, to really rein in what they perceive as a maximalist policy with regards to North Korea. So there'll be more pressure to really rein in the exercises between South Korea and the US. And of course, there will be continued pressure to really rein in the pace of THAAD missile deployments. And then, of course, economically, there are a number of areas of mutual cooperation, Bernie, and I think there's going to be a couple of deals signed in the areas of energy and agriculture, but these have been in the works for quite some time, and it's just really ceremonial rubber stamping, I think. But the bigger picture here is really going to be Belt and Road, areas of cooperation between the two, and really the emphasis is going to be on the Russians from the Chinese, addressing some of their concerns about the regulatory aspects, the political aspects of Belt and Road, and some of these sticky issues that Russia and the post-Soviet states have to deal with, especially with rail regulations. So this word of realpolitik is going to come up time and time again, and probably once again in this dialogue, Bernie.
Okay, a bit of a delay. We knew the tax reform was never going to be an easy animal to deal with. Sources now say that the House GOP, the House Republicans, have delayed a rollout of the tax bill until Thursday. It was originally expected for the beginning of the month on Wednesday, but it looks like there are still some T's to cross or whatever, or some I's to dot. A lot of contentious issues, of course, deductibility of mortgage, interest, 401k, contribution treatment, and local and state tax deductibility, which has pitted a lot of the business community, like home builders, against the administration, against removing sacred cows like mortgage deductibility. So once again, don't hold your breath. Looks like it's going to be. So I'll pull up the boards in no particular order. Let's check the dollar and then subsequent asset classes and currencies. There we go. There's your U.S. dollar Japan cross right there, still steady at 113.63. Of course, the market waiting for a heck of a lot, including the naming of the next Fed chief. Is it going to be Powell? Is it going to be Taylor? Could be an outlier. Could be Yellen. It's looking like. And let's check the treasuries as well. The 10-year still locked into 2.3, 2.38%. Call it. Could that creep upwards as we round out to the end of the year and spike the short end of the curve and flatten it out a little bit? And elsewhere, let's look at the futures market and see what any indication the delay of the rollout of the GOP House pros, or the bill, it has on the markets. It's not even registering right now. It is so fresh. There we go. You just hit the refresh button. And looking like any implications or any net effect at this point is going to be muted. Delays can be good, of course, if it's meant to improve the rollout, or maybe allow for additional discussions on things like mortgage deductibility or 401ks as well. And check the Nikkei futures. We're 28 minutes before the start of a new month for the spot market in Japan today, and the SGX is now giving us a refreshed look. Aside from the CME 22,185, it's still looking up whether you look at the CME active contract or the SGX. As tech companies battle to get ahead in the autonomous vehicle market, Alphabet gave a demonstration of its driverless vans. Our own Mr. Carr, Phil LeBeau, got behind the wheel, not really because there's no need for someone behind the wheel, but well, if you're not behind the wheel, how can you see what the wheel's doing?
Hello. After stepping into Waymo's self-driving minivan and telling the van to start driving, I admit it was a little odd seeing the steering wheel turn with nobody in the driver's seat. But after that, the self-driving minivan provided an uneventful ride, which is exactly what Waymo is counting on. A screen in the back seat lets passengers see what the minivan sees, including other vehicles, pedestrians, or people on bikes, reassuring passengers why it may be slowing down or waiting to proceed on its route. Waymo says it's getting close to putting self-driving vehicles on public roads for large numbers of people to use, not just in test programs. Meanwhile, the race to develop driverless cars is heating up. GM's Cruise Automation is expanding. Its test cars will soon be on the streets of Lower Manhattan. And CEO Mary Barra says her company is close to taking drivers out of some test vehicles. But there are hurdles to clear before we see widespread use of self-driving cars. For example, what are the government regulations? Will safety drivers be needed behind the steering wheel in case of an emergency? And is the public ready to accept robocars zipping around town? Even after 3.5 million miles on public roads and countless hours testing scores of traffic situations, Waymo says it's still learning how to make self-driving vehicles as safe as possible. But after going behind the walls of Waymo's test facility here in California, it's clear the technology focused on making passengers comfortable has hit a point where self-driving cars and the technology behind those cars is close to hitting the street.
Okay, unless you can take a nap, I don't see the point of autonomous. But anyway, lawyers for Facebook, Twitter, Google face senators over Russia's alleged meddling in the 2016 elections. This just won't go away. Lawmakers pressed Facebook on why they didn't catch ads bought using rubles, Russian currency, and why their investigation took up till now. They also probed social media platform on how much it knows about their 5 million advertisers. Facebook's lawyer saying that in hindsight, more could have been done. Daniel Ives, Chief Strategy Officer and Head of Technology Research at GBH Insights, join us from stateside. Thank you very much for joining us, Daniel. I don't know. I mean, if senators are actually really interested in knowing about the inner workings of their rate cards and you know, the characterization of their advertisers, aren't they going a little bit out of bounds here? It's a little bit too deep inside baseball, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a little grandstanding going on here. I think it's going to be a slippery slope for Facebook and for Twitter and Google in terms of being cooperative and trying to maybe, you know, open the kimono a bit. But I think that they don't want to really talk too much about it because also it could open themselves up for more regulation, more scrutiny. And I think there's a fine line between cooperating here and revealing their own playbook.
Daniel, what exactly does anybody really know what they're hunting for here, or is it just for the fun of the hunt? I mean, you know, when the election results came in, they did a recount. Remember, Jill Stein insisted on a recount. I think it was Wisconsin, and you know, the Trump camp came out actually ahead when they did a recount. Former President Jimmy Carter, in a few days ago, said he seriously doubts that any kind of a probe, no matter how long or deep it goes on, is going to yield enough, you know, of a change to sway the actual overall election results. So is this a hunt for the hunt's sake? I mean, this could take the rest of the 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there is some of that going on. I think also, look, it's the first time that these social media platforms have kind of been thrown in harm's way in terms of, you know, how it's been used, especially on the Russia meddling situation. And I think they are going to have to change some of their ways, and you've started to see that with Twitter and Google in terms of some of the Russian advertising, you know, changes even over the last few weeks. But I do think that there's going to be a lot more sort of digging here. I'm not sure there's too much more they're going to find. It's obvious that, and it's well documented in terms of the Russian meddling thing. But I think, look, the fact that social media was used in this sort of mechanism is something I think everyone understands. Mm-hmm. The big thing from an investor and from a technology perspective is to make sure this doesn't open up for more regulation and more scrutiny. That's where this goes from a grandstanding situation to something that could be more negative.
Yeah, I mean, where do you stop? You have to start filing approval requests every time you get a new advertiser, or what? Daniel, I mean, you know, the Mueller inquiry, you know, has now nailed Manafort and, you know, and Gates on issues dating back 10 years, well before the campaign. You know, if the left is going to be barking about, you know, unfettered, an unfettered Mueller-led investigation, shouldn't they do the same and sign off on the same thing for Fusion GPS and the Democrats paying good money to assemble a dossier on, you know, any possible misdeeds or untoward activity by the Trump campaign? Doesn't that merit a full-scale investigation as well?
Yeah, that's where does this sort of go from? And that's why I think, look, I think we're going to see Silicon Valley, some of these tech put down. I think they cooperate, but I do think, you know, that they want to, you know, sort of do what they need to do, but they need to be careful.
Okay, Daniel, appreciate your time. But sorry, but the microwaves aren't cooperating. But a good chat, nevertheless. Daniel Ives, GBH Insights. Apple leading the gains on the street overnight. Some pretty positive reviews for their iPhone 10, which starts shipping this Friday. Eunice, I am so jealous of you today. You actually got your hands on one, and you got your power tools, and you ripped the thing apart and deconstructed it. I had no idea you had so much engineer inside you.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Bernie, you and I have been reporting in China or in Hong Kong and in China for a really long time, for years. But for here in mainland China, I'm always amazed by numbers, right? Just because China is so huge. Mm-hmm. And on social media, the hashtag iPhone 10 has been read 400 million times so far. So that is bigger than the population of the entire United States. And I think it says something about the excitement about how Chinese feel about the iPhone 10. And we saw Apple yesterday really taking advantage of that to try to give us a sneak peek of the device, and then the video ended up online on social media, and everybody was, I mean, there's so many people who watched it. It was like 2.6 million views just within a matter of minutes of that video being posted. So I want to give you some of the pre-order numbers that we are looking at so far. So in terms of pre-orders, last checked, retailer JD.com has 2.5 million. Some of the Chinese appliance sellers have tallied another 3 million or so. And the most popular color that's being ordered online is space gray. On the black market, the markup so far for these phones is almost double the official price. So there are people out there who are actually ordering the iPhone 10 for $2,900. Apple has also, as you know, Bernie, run into a lot of challenges, but the iPhone 10 is a big talker here. In fact, on social media, people are discussing a couple of different points that they like. The Animoji, which is essentially an animated emoji on the phone. Camera portrait lighting, which is quite nice. And then facial recognition, which is another new feature. And the discussions, Bernie, are really funny because people are saying, oh, wait, so if I put my hat on, is the phone going to recognize me? What if I put on a lot of heavy makeup? And then the one that I thought was more specific to China was, will the phone recognize me if I am wearing my pollution mask?
Yeah, well, I can't think of a more fun pursuit to do in my off-air hours than to try to trick the facial recognition on my phone. Boy, you know what? From that video there, Eunice, you're having way too much fun. You're having more fun than a CNBC correspondent is allowed to have. Now listen, you know, let's be honest, Eunice. $2,900 is not because people are so, you know, floored by this machine or this phone that they go, wow, I gotta have one, I gotta have this one, I gotta be the coolest person on my block. I don't know about China, but in Hong Kong, the biggest sport here is to get in front of the line, grab as much of whatever it is so you can scalp people and sell it for inflated, ridiculous, extortionate prices. You see, that's what Hong Kong people really excel at, you know? I mean, I'm sorry to call a spade and the truth, but that's what Hong Kong people do to each other. What about China? Are people dying to pay $3,000 for a phone because they want to be cool, China, like you?
You know what? That's right. I'm so cool. No, Bernie, what's also interesting is that there's a new trend that was forming for this phone in mainland China, because on social media right now and through Weibo, you're seeing the same phenomenon that you are talking about in Hong Kong, where there have been just regular people who managed to get the pre-order for the first day. And because of all the demand and all the discussion that you and Emily had talked about how the supply, the demand is outstripping the supply, people are now just themselves offering to sell their phone for that first day and the rights to pick it up on that first day for an extra 500 to 1,000 renminbi. So it's not just the scalpers that we're seeing getting in on the action, but also average people as well.
Oh, wow. Okay, so just normal moms and pops are getting on the bank. But that anime, what do you call it, emoji or whatever, that was really scary with the blue mask there. Take another look and pull up an old...
Well, you know,
edition of Star Trek. That is,
Bernie, you know what? It was funny because
it's a Klingon face.
Bernie, it's funny because, so I was with the shooter, the cameraman, and he was talking about, okay, this phone has incredible camera portrait lighting. It was nice seeing you all. I am now going to be out of a job. And of course, when I saw that animated emoji, I thought, oh, wow, this is so interesting. I look like I'm in a movie. I'm in an animated movie. Oh my God. TV broadcasters have a shelf life of 0. We are all going to, because of Apple, we are all going to be turned into animatrons on the phones. And you and I will no longer have to be actually in person in front of a camera. But I guess there could be a benefit to that, because then we don't actually have to put on makeup. We could just be voices, and maybe that actually would work better. We would have shelf. What do you think?
We could be an operating system, you know, with a fake face and just kind of dredging up, you know, an image or something like that. I don't know where that leaves us. I think it leaves us at a charging station, like the what's it called? The Syndicate? What's it called? I forgot the name of that Bruce Willis movie. Anyway, we'll leave it for later. You're having too much fun, okay? Oh, look at that emoji.